Hello, I'm Meryl Hathaway, and today my guest is Robby Switzer, the co-founder of Shopanova, a modern growth media buying agency for e-commerce shops. This phenomenal team of Robby and his co-founder, Dan, grew up in Alaska, working as commercial fishermen and doing construction projects during the off-season when they weren't out at sea, until having their families and deciding to switch paths. Since pivoting to marketing and Facebook ads, they created Shopanova and have been able to develop processes and effective sales funnels to grow their clients' revenues from 5 figures all the way to 7 figures and beyond. I'm super excited to welcome Robby to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm stoked to be here. That was quite the intro. Thank you.
My pleasure. I love seeing the reaction to my guests as I'm explaining who they are, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, that is me. Oh, I guess that's me too." It's kind of great.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a little bit about myself today.
Yep, we're gonna learn more. Here we go. Okay, so let's jump right into our first segment of the show called "Getting to Know You." I'm just gonna ask you a series of this or that questions, so don't have to think too hard. Just throw out a first instinct response and we'll chat. So number one, tablet or laptop?
Ooh, got to go with the laptop.
Yeah, most people do. It's still, it's almost old school at this point to have a laptop and go with that instead of a tablet and all the Bluetoothy options. But I prefer it too.
Yeah, much more capable, much more versatile. I just like it.
Respect. All right, number 2, sport fishing or commercial fishing?
Oh, wow. I'd have to go commercial fishing.
Why is that?
That was just always super fun. I mean, for me, it was always like just so adventurous, and the experiences we had out on the boat and, just the sights we got to see. It was so fun. Like your whole day is just wrapped up in trying to find fish. And then it just felt such, it was so rewarding when you would find them and then you'd make a big chunk of change. So to me, that was always more fun.
Do you have one particular experience you can share that's like a crazy fishing story? I don't know anyone else who's ever fished in Alaska, so I have to know if there's anything that stands out.
Oh man. Well, there's the big one, which really launched us into where we are now. And it's part my story, part Daniel's story. But, we grew up doing this, and we grew up at a town of 5,000 people here in Homer, Alaska. And Daniel, more so than I, he was on the boat at a very early age. Like we're talking 3 years old. He'd go out for a couple weeks with his dad. And by the time he was like 10 years old, he was a full-time deckhand on his dad's boat. And they were fishing in Kodiak, which is like pretty rough weather, pretty rugged country. Like that's where the tough people go to fish. And he was fishing there as a full-time deckhand at the age of like 10 years old with his dad, Tom Stafford, who's like a local legend. He has the world record herring set, which is a story in and of itself. But we were both kind of got into it in early adulthood around the same time. And I'll share bits of his story because it really served as like the turning point for us in our careers. He was out, we had both gotten married around the same time. We actually both got pregnant with kids or our first child around the same time. And we were just trying to figure out how to make this transition from like just showing up as a deckhand on a boat, really fun, work hard, play hard lifestyle to then like bringing on the responsibility of being a business owner and, actually have a family and be a little bit more responsible with it. It was a totally different thing. We didn't realize that was necessarily going to be the case, but we both went into debt, like $300,000 to buy our own fishing operations. And one day, is this too much of a long-winded answer for your this or that question?
Yeah, but that's okay. We're already into it. It's fine. I'll restructure the rest of it. I'm dying to know. I guarantee everybody else is too. So keep going.
All right. So one day Daniel was out fishing and they were doing really well so far in the season. And he had like a 45-foot seine boat. So 3 other crewmen, pretty large boat. There's a cabin. They like live aboard, sleep aboard, do all of that. And, his wife had come to visit him in Valdez. And so they were heading into town. They were going to head to the harbor and pick her up so she could come out for a couple of days, his pregnant wife, when the weather just like picked up pretty significantly in a pretty fast amount of time. And it went from like they're having a pretty chill day. They were like all inside the cabin. Just I think there was like, he said they had a movie going and they're just traveling. And all of a sudden, like this big wave just came and it hit the back of the boat, and they started like surfing down it like super fast. And the boat, it turned hard over, and in like a split second, the rail dipped under water and the whole boat flipped over. And it went from like just pretty casual fishing to like them scrambling for their lives.
Oh my God.
And yeah, super crazy. And so as this was happening, Daniel, being the ninja that he was sitting on the uphill side of the boat as it was slipping. He opened the window and crawled out the window as the boat was turning over, and like basically crawled along the bottom of the boat as it was becoming upside down. And he got on top of the boat and was able to keep his cell phone dry, and he made the call for help. But in the meantime, there was 3 other crewmen stuck inside the cabin, and it was like total Titanic moment. Like it was filling up, and yeah, they thought they were going to die. And spoiler alert, nobody died, but it was super scary because it was filling up. And then Patrick, who actually also works with us, and this is crazy. I always think like, Dan, you must be a pretty good leader, a pretty good captain for you to roll a boat in the fishing industry. And now for like Patrick and Michael, who are both on the boat with you, to come work with you over here, like they must see something in you as a leader to go through that and still have that loyalty. But anyways, Patrick took his last breath and, tried to get out, and the net fell off the board and it was all swirled around the boat. So it was like, even if they got out of the cabin, it was like still another challenge to get up to the surface. And long story short, they all got out and eventually help came. But I think in that moment, Daniel realized that it was just a little too much risk for what it was worth.
Yeah.
And definitely not what he wanted to do. He talks about feeling like, he just felt like a complete failure. He had pulled equity out of his house to be able to purchase the boat, lost all his money. The boat was underinsured. And it just started this journey of like really feeling beat down and broken and feeling like he needed a change. So this was happening simultaneous to me running my own boat. I thank the Lord didn't flip it or have any experiences like that. But I remember I had a similar moment where I was like out there toward the end of the season. I had been out on the water for like 3.5 months, hadn't seen my wife or my newborn baby. And I saw this guy like off in the distance. He was just grinding away. It was nighttime. It was rainy. It was windy. And he was like drinking, just medicating out there. I was like, I think that's going to be me. Like if I'm out here for another 30, 40 years or whatever, like that's literally what my life could look like. And so we both had this big moment where we're like, this has worked really well and provided us some super awesome values like hard work and innovation. I mean, if you're out on a boat in the middle of the water and you experience an issue, like you just figure it out. And so it really fosters a very innovative mindset. But we just started talking because we're really close friends. And fun fact, I actually married Daniel's little sister. So we're actually brother-in-laws.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
It's like there's so many like little pieces of this story.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I hope I'm not going too far down the rabbit trail.
Wow.
But anyways.
Wait, so let me just clarify then also, was he on a commercial fishing boat at the time? Technically, was it commercial fishing that he was doing? Okay.
Yeah, so we were both commercial fishing at the time. And then all of this happens and we both decide we don't want to do it anymore.
No kidding.
But yeah, and it's a pretty extreme situation. But what's crazy is I feel like a lot of people, they find themselves like pretty established, like pretty far down the road on a career that maybe they don't love or they can't see themselves doing forever. And it's really hard to make that change. And for Daniel, it was a lot easier because he almost died and he has like PTSD from like this crazy, awful experience. And then, that was him launching into adulthood. He just had his first baby. Like all this stuff happened at the same time. And it was super, super scary.
Wow.
So for him, it was like almost out of survival and necessity that he wanted to make the shift. But like for me and my wife, it was hard to be away, definitely. And especially like when we started having kids, but we were making like sufficient money. We were fairly comfortable. And even like some people would say we were doing well. And so we were like, respected in that industry. And so I think a lot of people feel that way, where they're pretty established and they just don't quite know how to make that change. Well, me and Daniel just decided to take the plunge, and we completely shifted gears to something that was totally unfamiliar to us.
That's amazing. I'm so excited to hear about what that looked like, how that unfolded, because I agree with you. I think so many people, especially now, are all really looking at what they do and deciding whether they want to keep doing it or not. And making that change is really, really, really hard. I totally understand it. I'm sort of blown away by the story. I really am. I'm blown away by the story. Let's hang on getting to how you guys ended up transitioning for the next segment. Let's finish out our getting to know you, and then we'll get there. But that, I mean, like, it's just so, don't be sorry. It's amazing. And now everybody is going to be on the edge of their seat to find out what happened next.
Perfect.
Okay. So back to the mundane. Instagram or TikTok?
TikTok.
Okay.
I just recently got into TikTok, and I get so much joy from it. No, just kidding. I just love funny videos, and so I can waste too much time on there.
Some of my favorite videos are like a giant dog loving a really baby dog, like a very tiny puppy. Have you seen those? I feel like there's a ton of those. It's like, this giant dog is best friends with a teeny tiny dog. I love those videos. All right, coffee or tea? Yeah.
Coffee, 100%.
Me too. In fact, cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Take a quick sip. Netflix or YouTube?
Probably Netflix. Yeah, it's more of a 50-50 for me, but I think I lean more toward
I get
Netflix.
That. All kinds of random things are on there now too. Like, you can really do a deep dive of all different kinds of genres and new things, old things that I thought just aired that are now on net. I don't understand, but I love it. All right, and lastly, B2B or B2C?
Oh man, that one's super tricky because as a company we're B2B, and I love that, but we help our clients with B2C, and that's super fun too. I think I got to lean on what our clients do.
Really?
B2C. It's just so fun, and that's why we do what we do. We love it.
It's exciting to create messaging for the general public to see, and then see how it affects sales and all those things. I totally agree. Okay, so I know we sort of touched on it a little bit, but in terms of humble beginnings, your very first job ever, was it a fishing job or was it something else?
Man, so I actually started just, my buddy's dad it was like a custom Bronco shop where he shipped out car parts, and I was just in a warehouse shipping out parts. Oh, that was my very first job.
Like packaging it up and closing up boxes and then getting them on a truck kind of shipping?
Yeah. And what's funny about that is it was like a very e-commerce driven business, but it was before e-commerce was really a big thing. And so that's kind of a cool, hey, I'm learning again. I'm learning about myself just by the nature of your questions.
I love it. Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes those jobs, you can look back on them because anything in a warehouse, I mean, I picture you're standing for hours and hours and hours. I've actually done those types of jobs before too, where you're on your feet for like 7-8 hours a day. And the thing that you don't think about is, first of all, like just how much your body is constantly having to be, like you're nimble, you're constantly moving and doing different things. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't realize also is just the amount of like leaning over to pick up the empty box, then the reaching for the tape or the reaching for the packing materials, and then the lifting of the filled box and moving it, like how much physical activity that actually adds up to after even like an hour, let alone doing it for 8 hours. So do you remember your body just being like, oh, at the end of the day, or did you just get super used to it? Or
definitely. Yeah. I mean, definitely. And then especially on like concrete floors, it's so much different. It just takes it out of you. Your bones just feel tired.
Seriously, they have the mats they put down in warehouses now where at least you can stand on like the big, thick rubber mats and that helps. But oof, that's like waiting tables on marble floors or working in retail in high heels on marble floors. I've had to do all those things, and oh my Lord, it's so painful.
Totally. You know, there was fun parts too, though, where in a big warehouse, there was a really fun group of people that worked there, and you would walk around a corner and somebody would just like jump off a shelf at you just for like the quick spook moment. And that I'll never forget those, because you would plan all day like how to spook that person. It started a very mischievous.
Oh, I love that. There's so many nooks and crannies to hide in a warehouse. My fiance does that to me every time I come home and he's home. In fact, he did it last night. Actually, I was coming home from my friend's house. We watched a scary movie to like ring in October, and I was already nervous walking home from her house, and I walk in and he pretended to be asleep. Then I went to like wash up in the bathroom, and he came up behind me. I was like, was it scary? And I was like, ah! Like I freaked out. It's his favorite thing to do, to freak me out like that. So yeah, I would have been on the floor screaming in that warehouse a lot. Oh my gosh. Okay. So you started in the warehouse, there was the fishing, all the fishing, and then scary moment for Daniel and you guys, and you have a family, and you're like, okay, we got to shift gears here and do something where we're not terrified of flipping on boats and never seeing our families again. How did the next phase go? What happened after that to transition into where you guys are today?
Yeah. So when we were out on the boats, one thing that we always just really enjoyed doing that was just like a hobby was we'd have a video camera with us, because there's so many crazy things. Like you'd see whales jumping out of the water. You'd see like all this crazy wildlife, beautiful sunsets. You're awake for most hours of the day. So you get to see amazing things just happening in a really beautiful country in Alaska. So we were making videos, and one thing led to the next, and businesses started asking us like, hey, can you make us a video to help us promote our business? And so like, that's our ticket. Like, we're going to start a video production company. We're going to be the biggest video production company in Alaska. We're going to take over the world. And we just started, and we failed pretty dang miserably. Like in the first year, we got a couple video projects, but long story short, like, we were having a hard enough time bringing in business that we like really grasped for success by bringing on somebody into the business to help us just do sales. And that whole first year was like all three of us working as absolute hard as we could just to pay that one person's salary, and then going home and like having to tell our wives, who are like, why did we leave fishing again? Like, because we were actually doing pretty well financially in that way. And to have to somehow justify, like, I know it's not working out right now. I know, we trying to figure out how to buy groceries, but it will be worth it in the long term. But to say that month over month over the course of like over a year was just really, really difficult. But in that scenario, we learned something that was just so pivotal to where we ended up now. Is we'd make a video for a company, and then we would follow up with them after they received the deliverable, and we'd be like, hey, how's it going? Like, what, are you getting any feedback on the video? What'd you guys do with it? Is your business exploding? and the response we'd get would be like, hey, we put it on our Instagram. We have, maybe 17 views. We threw it on our website. Everybody here at the office loves it, but it hasn't really affected our business. Yeah. And we're like, what the heck? Like, that's not what it's supposed to be like. And it led us down this rabbit trail of, okay, now we have an asset for marketing. What do we do with it? And trying to answer that question for the benefit of our client is what led us into paid marketing. And we learned all about the fun sales funnels and all the things you can do online to actually generate sales. And we found actually when we narrowed down our focus into just the paid marketing piece, like not even the asset creation, we discovered like a pretty viable business model. And so from there, it was just a process of like taking any little win that we could get. And then of course, bringing in a mentor to kind of show us the ropes. and just using that as fuel for hitting our
So
next
when you
step.
say you brought in a mentor, what do you mean by that? Because I think that's something that is having mentorship from someone is so immensely helpful with business. So you guys brought someone in to help show you kind of which aspects of the business as you developed it.
Yeah. So it's funny because like I look back at our foundation and I don't know that this is how I would 100% advise somebody how to start, because there are so many challenges and maybe there's better ways to go about it. But for us, it was like anything we could do to help us get a little bit further. For us, that was worth it. So we got hit by an ad ourselves, and we signed up for somebody's like masterclass. And so we went through this thing like, and it was very specific to the pain points we were having. Like, are you running marketing, but it's not making a difference in their business? And obviously on behalf of our clients. And it was basically showing somebody how to run Facebook ads effectively. So we joined that, and then we eventually upgraded into like a one-on-one mentorship. And the reason I say I don't know if I'd advise people on that is it's hard these days to find like a good mentor or a good program to teach you some of these online skills that aren't necessarily available in a conventional or traditional university. But there is some where it's like you will learn exactly what you need to do to be successful in today's online market. And thankfully we got lucky. And so we joined this program, and it taught us the framework of building an agency. It taught us how to get leads, turn those into clients. But most importantly to us, it gave us it gave us the confidence to be able to bring on a client and have the ability to get them results, because it wasn't just contingent upon mine and Daniel's knowledge. It was like, we're going to bring in a client and we're going to work alongside you one-on-one to get them results and teach you every step of the way. And it was just a process of doing that over and over, building case studies and then using those case studies to fuel our own marketing. And now we've like grown. We have 40 full-time employees. We've generated our clients over like $100 million. And it's just been like a super amazing journey. And now our wives, we can actually like go home and be like, yeah.
Yeah.
It was worth it.
I was going to say, I'm sure that they're like, okay, I'm going to the grocery store. No problems here.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
I saw that you guys started with Facebook ads, right? Like that was one of the first ways that you went. So how did that sort of lead you into all the other ways that you could help clients? Yeah.
So Facebook was really, really great to us for a long time, and it still is. But I think there's just been, the market changes fast enough that we just realized it was too much to rely on that one platform, that one traffic source for everything. And so it was really, halfway based on like, this is a real need that we need to figure out, and halfway based on just future-proofing the company. And so, for example, like when Apple rolled out their privacy stuff, or there were some big changes in Facebook, and we just had access to less data, less attribution. It just became a little bit trickier, and it helped us to realize there's probably a lot more we can be doing to create a much more holistic marketing strategy that would really benefit our clients.
Yeah. So
now we went.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, please.
Yeah, so we went from just being like basically Facebook ad specialists, again for e-commerce stores, to now doing like a whole gamut of things. So Facebook, paid search on Google, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, email marketing, and SMS. I think there's maybe one or two other things that I'm forgetting, but it's just basically being able to take somebody's brand message and get it everywhere on the internet, basically. And if we can do that and we can tie it all together, our clients are going to see results. And so that was really what fueled the transition for us. And it's been hard to take on that much.
Yeah.
But it's definitely been worth it, and we're getting better and better every day. So I'm certainly
definitely. So all that being said, what are some of your biggest tips that you could give to grow, scale, and sustain an e-commerce business? Any tips right out the gamut you think that kind of work across the board?
Definitely. So there was a short period of time where people could like start a drop shipping store, and it was really cool. It gave a lot of people the ability to get started with a low barrier of entry. but there wasn't like a ton of responsibility on what they were providing to their customers. So oftentimes it would be like pretty cheap products from China. It'd be a quick slap together website, but with like a good, a good funnel, like a good marketing strategy. Like they were actually having the ability to generate some sales and, provide some level of value to their customers. And it kind of worked for a little bit. That doesn't really work anymore. And especially with attribution and visibility in the ad count kind of going down. I think what we're experiencing now and what people really need to latch on to be successful in today's e-commerce market is just showing up with like really, really good content. Because if you were to rewind several years and we didn't have access to all the wonderful tools that we do today to market our companies, you would find that the people with the best content are the ones getting the customers. And so if you can start there and you can really develop your brand, show up authentically, have a real story about real people. People buy from people. And so they don't want to see your best impression of like a faceless corporation. They want to know you and they want to buy your products. If you can show up with that authenticity and actually own it, which by the way, that's really hard to do. Like for me and Daniel, we were embarrassed. We were from Alaska. Like who's going to hire a marketing agency from Homer, Alaska? And when we owned that message, that's when we began building trust.
I was going to say that's what's so unique about you guys, though. That's where authenticity has all the power. I was so excited when I saw you guys were from Alaska. I was like, oh, this is going to be different. I also have about 1 billion questions about Alaska that I'm like holding back from asking right now. But no, it's true that authenticity is the word that I hear tossed around all the time now. And it's partly because people just started mimicking what they thought people wanted to see or what they think perfection looks like. And everyone started leaning into that. It's almost like, there's this wonderful woman, Iris Apfel, and I was watching a documentary about her yesterday, and she said something about style. Like she's a style icon, and she wears funky, crazy outfits that have all different colors and textures and patterns and things. And she said, she was like, New York used to be the style capital. And now you go downtown, they think they're stylish, but they're all wearing a black uniform. And I thought that was so interesting because she's like, where did it all go? Where like you want to see what unique individuals are going to do. And that's what draws you to them. You're not drawn to someone who's wearing a long black pea coat all the time. Like, it's just sort of like, okay, we know that can look snazzy and fancy, but also we've seen it done. We've seen it replicated. We've seen. So when you have like different interesting pieces from like downtown LA and then a necklace from Africa and then a really interesting hat that like looks like then it's like, who is that person and what are they trying to tell me? And that authenticity, I feel like is what everyone's talking about now, is that you have to have a story, and a story that people can either relate to or be really interested in learning more about. And without that, you don't really have a powerful voice when there are so many other voices.
Totally. That's such a good point. And from my experience, it seems like it's so easy to see from the outside perspective, like for you to say, hey, you should really own that Alaska story. But for us, it's so hard. And our clients have the same thing. They're like, there's really that fraudulent mindset that just comes up where you feel like you're not supposed to be there. You feel like, who am I to be able to launch the store and, have this level of fashion with this audience? But it's so true. Like if you can show up with the content, and really harness the idea that content is king, but then pair that with all of the tools that are available to you today, to me, that's the key to success in today's online.
Yeah, market. Absolutely. I agree. And I think imposter syndrome is so common. I think almost everybody has it. And it really is, you have to trick your mind out of it because it'll hold you back if you allow for it to. So I did want to ask you specifically, you guys created this business together and you both, made this transition together. How do you think it's benefited you to be in sort of a duo as co-founders versus doing this like completely on your own?
Oh man, I think about this all the time because I don't think I would be here without him being with me. basically it's so nice to not do it alone. And we kind of hear the narrative that like, don't go into business with a friend, or especially like your family, your brother-in-law. And there's definitely, it has its challenges, and we have to treat that relationship like really seriously.
Yeah.
We have basically a life consultant that meets with us weekly so that we can tend to that relationship as if it were like a marriage, which sounds crazy. But if we can keep that relationship tight, that's going to obviously help us to avoid all the hurdles that come from that narrative of like, you shouldn't go into business with a friend. But for me, just like not being alone in it is so helpful, because any business is going to hit roadblocks. It's going to have times of feast and times of famine. And if you can have somebody who's there to be strong when you're weak, and, you know, to have a sense of humor when you don't have all the answers,
Yeah.
like it totally makes all the difference in being able to endure just what it means to be a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. I've personally really been my own business for so many years, and it can be so isolating. It can be really like you feel like you're on an island all by yourself, and you're just kind of fending off the sharks every day on your own. And it would be really cool if you had somebody being like, all right, there's another one. Let's go together. We can both do this. So yeah, and then at the same time, I'm so fascinated that you guys get weekly help, or you talk through things weekly with someone. I think that's amazing. And I don't think it's silly at all. In fact, you know, I mean, some of the best relationships go to counseling, because there's always things that come up. And especially with you guys having such a delicate partnership because of your relationships with other people involved. I mean, I think that's an amazing idea, and also a really cool suggestion, like for other business people, you know, just to have either a therapist or a coach or somebody helping you walk through the different issues happening. And I've never heard somebody bring that up. So I'm really glad that you did. It's really an interesting thing. Have you guys been doing that since the beginning, or did you kind of hit a snag and go, okay, we're going to need help to make sure we can keep this really, really positive?
Yeah, no. So definitely, like from the beginning, brought in that first mentor to teach us, you know, really the skill sets and the standard operating procedures, all of that stuff. And we just, in that process, had such a high value for mentorship that it was very quick that we brought that in at a very personal level into our relationship. And what's been so cool, and I feel like what a lot of people should be encouraged by, is, you know, I think traditional business would say you have to compartmentalize your life. You have to like show up and do your thing at work, and then you have a different life that happens over here outside of work. But the truth is, like, business it's life on all fronts at all levels at all times. And so what we were experiencing in these meetings with a life consultant or counselor or therapist, it's pretty much, those words are synonymous to me at this point in this particular instance. What we would find is that any breakthrough we'd have in our personal life, because we don't just talk about business in those meetings, we're talking about, hey, I actually am scared that I don't know if I am going to be able to go buy groceries, and what are we going to do? And so we're actually like working through fears and stuff like this. And what we find is that even personal breakthroughs end up having a benefit in the business world, and our breakthroughs in the business world end up benefiting us on a personal level. And so it creates a very holistic approach to business. And then to us, that's just like an invitation to conscious capitalism, where our business can exist to actually make the world better. And if you don't try to compartmentalize it, there's so much there for you. And then one thing I just wanted to say really quickly is, not being alone in business is so important, but you don't necessarily need to have like a 50-50 owner like me and Daniel do. Like there's so many things, like even you and I talking on this podcast, there's so many ways for people to get encouraged, get in a community, and not have to go through it alone, because it can be a scary journey. And a lot of people think that their problems are like unique to them, and nobody's ever been through what they're going through. But when you start talking with people, you're like, dang, like we're all going through the same thing.
Yes.
And maybe we don't even have the solution, but hey, let's just encourage each other. Yeah. And so I think that can be a really powerful thing in terms of becoming a successful business.
Absolutely. It reminds me of, there's a friend of mine who recommended creating a mastermind group. She's been a part of a mastermind group for a long time and I didn't know anything about this, but it's where people who do oftentimes different things, but they're running their own business, or they're trying to develop their own business or create something. And so she's a professional organizer, and she is in a mastermind group where she's the professional organizer. And then there's like a realtor and someone who does interior design and someone who does, different roles. And there's like 5 of them, but they get together on a monthly basis to kind of swap stories and concerns and get advice, but then like share all the different things that they're going through within their own businesses. And she says they often are talking all about all the same things, despite being in different industries and having different experiences. They're all so similar that it kind of brings them into a group mentality, despite the fact that they're all really working for themselves. So yeah, I think I'm a big talker, and I think talking and sharing is really important, because then again, we all feel more a part of things because we're all more similar than we are dissimilar. So, okay. So jumping to, you guys have a 5-step process to scaling. I would love to just ask you a little bit about that, give you a chance to chat about how you guys approach the scaling in the 5-step process, within the e-commerce space, just because, I mean, obviously we talked about like, social media being super important and all these, there's all different aspects, but I love when people put it together and like, here are the steps to take. I think it makes it so much simpler to approach anything when you have it kind of structured that way. So anything you want to share about that?
Yeah. And so I'm actually not the best media buyer on our team anymore, which is super, super exciting. And it's helped us get to where we are now, but I'll take a shot at it. But it's pretty cool, especially with us expanding into several different channels. What we've found is that there's timeless principles that just need to be adapted to what's relevant and effective today. And so for a long time, our 5-step process was, how to get results on Facebook, and a very specific process for doing that. The challenge has become, how do we take what we've learned there and implement it into like a holistic marketing strategy? And so we've really done our best to like distill that down and boil it down. And I would even reduce a few steps from there. And I would just start with establishing the brand. And what I mean by that is like getting the right content. So identifying not only what's your product, but like what's your product angle. It's the difference between, like we saw a huge example with this when Apple came out with the iPod. There were so many people in the MP3 player space that were ready to break into the market and actually superior products to the iPod. And they said, we have this MP3 player. It can do this amount of storage. It has this bit rate, like all these technical features. And then Steve Jobs came along and he said, this is 1,000 songs in your pocket. And that was his angle. And it was so much more powerful than all of the features and even the benefits of these other products. And so I think as we establish our brand and build the content to really fuel that brand, we need to identify, who we are, what's our story, what's our product angle, and then just be consistent with that in terms of all of the content that we create. From there, you take the essence of that brand. So that would be like step 1 is establishing the brand. And then step 2 would be putting it into tools where it's going to be amplified. So that's getting an ad account on Facebook, setting up your keywords on Google, even developing an organic strategy on TikTok or Pinterest. And you're using all these tools available to you to take one seed of an idea and amplify it out across the internet. And then from there, it's really like an analytical process of seeing where you're getting the best results from, and then reallocating your resources towards what's working the best. Yeah. And so it's really establishing the brand, integrating the tools, and then scaling based on where your data is coming from. And that would be like the simplest, like step-by-step process, because in each one of those, there's obviously several steps to do that excellently. Right. But I think for a lot of people, they don't even know where to start. And if you are wondering where to start, like start with your brand. Start with that one sentence that makes your product so much better than everybody else's. And it's not about like the features of it. They want to know how it impacts them and benefits them in their life.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. I feel like it clarified a lot, and it seems simple, but then again, like you said, each step has so many different elements to it that's why you need a you to figure out what to do. But yeah, no, it's, I think, yeah, the branding and being authentic and then finding ways to like it all makes a lot of sense. It's just, it is a lot of work and it can be so overwhelming for businesses. So obviously that's why you guys come into play and you're very, very necessary within all of it. So last question I have about this kind of thing is, so obviously the pandemic changed a lot when it comes to e-commerce because everybody was buying online as much as possible. Where do you see it going from here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think what we're in right now is kind of like this post-trust economy where the pandemic, everybody was buying online. And it was kind of an anomaly. People were getting really, really great results, established brands, and potentially people who were just outsourcing products and not even necessarily caring about their customers very much. So drop shippers had equal opportunity as like really good established brands. And there's people that do drop shipping really well and have great customer service and stand behind their product. And I don't mean to bash them at all, but there are some people who do it, and it creates a poor customer experience and it's not adding value to people's lives. But that all was able to happen in this inflated e-commerce market. I think what we're experiencing now is buyers are a lot more sophisticated. They've bought in a product that wasn't quite what they expected, and they're so much more smart, and people just get smarter every day. And so what I see happening is there's a little bit of a pendulum swing away from online shopping because everybody's excited to be out and about and in person again, maybe going to the mall. But that's a temporary thing. And when it swings back, we're still going to just see a steady incline of people buying online. And I think the way people buy and sell products today, it's never going to be the same. And it is leaning more and more toward online. And so for brands that are wanting to be successful in that market, it's just a matter of keeping up with people's expectations. For a long time, people had the option to charge for shipping. Now it's like, if you're not offering free shipping, like I'm just going to go somewhere else. And so there's a lot of things like that where you just need to be able to show up and provide your customers with the utmost amount of value if you want to be successful in
definitely. And it also seems to me like the messaging within the e-commerce sites is more important than ever, because if everybody's looking online for certain types of things, then your copy better stand out, your graphics, your content better all stand out. Otherwise, again, they'll find something that they like the aesthetic of better, whether the product is as good or not. So all of that is so important. And then I think you're right also that a lot of people just want to be in person again. So people do want to have that. I mean, I had to go return something yesterday, and I had a short list, but a list of a couple things that I needed to do and get. And I didn't even really think about, do I want to try to do this online or do I want to do it in person? Because I had to already physically go be somewhere, but it felt kind of nice. Like speaking to a clerk and being like, oh, yeah, how's your day? And she's like, I'm good. How are you? And I was like, I'm good. I'm good. And buying and having to thank you, like having the interaction felt great. And I've missed that mostly from coffee shops. I used to go get a coffee every morning, and I love baristas and I love like the whole process of that. And I think a lot of that is what people are missing. So to be drawn to the online shop, it's really important to have everything really keyed up so that you know that you're going to really grasp people when they come and find you. So yeah, all really good points.
And just try not to be everything for every person. Like just show up, be you, and try to create that human to human experience for your online customers. So that's what people really crave. And sometimes it's available, sometimes it's not. And so definitely when you're looking at copywriting, like just own you, and the people who are going to be drawn to that will be drawn to that.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. All right, let's go right into our last segment of the show, Robby, called Branded. And I just have 3 multiple choice questions that are just for fun. If you get them right, you win. If you get them wrong, you win. You almost win harder if you get them wrong because it means that you learned something. So these are all just a little bit about e-commerce and random trivia sort of stuff. So, all right, number 1. What is the most popular e-commerce platform used by e-commerce websites? Is it A, OpenCart, B, WooCommerce Checkout, or C, Wix?
Oh man, Shopify's not on there? I guess I would go WooCommerce.
You are correct. And I had never even heard of that before. Okay. What is WooCommerce? I had never heard of this, but it's my favorite title ever.
Yeah. So it's just a plugin, and a lot of people use it. Like if you had a WordPress site, just a custom site, it gives you the ability to embed an e-commerce experience in the shopping cart. But man, what we see is just a lot of Shopify. So that was
so Shopify was on the list, but it was not the most popular one. WooCommerce, check out. It was superior apparently. So watch out, Shopify.
Yeah, good to know.
Number 2, what % of online consumers in the US have made a purchase based on recommendations from a blog? I found this interesting because in my brain, I think of blogs as like 10 years ago, and that's not true. They're very prevalent. So I didn't know that this was such a thing, but okay. Is it A, 27%, B, 61%, or C, 89%? And this is, again, the percent of online consumers in the US that have made a purchase based on recommendations from a blog.
Oh my goodness.
It's hard, right?
This is a hard one.
I know.
I mean, I want to say 27 because I feel like I'd be surprised if it was higher, but I'm just going to shoot for the stars and say 61%.
You shot for the stars and you won. It was 61%. Very well done.
Perfect.
Yeah. So over half of online consumers have read a blog and been like, I got to buy that. So interesting. Maybe I'll start a blog.
Yeah.
Which I've said about 100 times in my life.
Good to know.
Yeah, interesting. But yeah, so you thought that it was going to be a lot lower than that, huh?
I did. I mean, and it's kind of the same thing. You feel like blogs are a thing of the past, and I think people think that same thing about email, but it's not necessarily true.
Like, it's interesting because things will evolve, but it doesn't mean that people aren't still also using or doing the things that they liked before. So I guess that's where that comes into play. And then lastly, what is the average order value for customers referred from Instagram? This one is interesting to me because I know a lot of people now who shop on Instagram. So the average order value for customers referred from Instagram, is it A, $25, B, $45, or C, $65?
I'm going to go $45.
It was actually C, $65. But what's interesting is, so that was $65 from Instagram. It's $55 from Facebook. So it goes down a little bit on Facebook. Then $46 from Twitter and $38 from YouTube.
Those are interesting.
That's what I thought too, right? I was like, ooh. I would have thought Facebook would be the highest, but a lot of people are kind of falling off of Facebook, but still on Instagram. So Instagram being higher, I guess, makes sense. And because it's such a visual platform, I can understand why, because everything is visual, that it's all product, you know?
Totally.
But then YouTube being the smallest, I would have thought Twitter for some reason was the smallest average order, just because I guess I don't really think of Twitter as being where I would find product, and YouTube I would still assume. I don't know. But yeah, so it was kind of all over the place. Interesting, right?
Yeah, very interesting. I would have to agree. I bet it's because Instagram is so visual. And so the higher ticket products probably just do better on a more visual
and because
platform.
people are just jiving for video content, and now they've got stories and reels. Like there's so much being put out through Instagram. So yeah, really fascinating. So Robby, this was so awesome to have you. I would just love to give you the opportunity so that if people are like, I am dying to work with marketing people in Alaska, that they know how to find you and reach out and get your take on things. So where can the folks find you guys?
Yeah, totally. Just go to our website, shopanova.com, and all the information you could ever want is
everything
there.
You've ever
we have
wanted.
Some free resources. There's you have the option to set up a time to chat with us. So anything you want in regards to us would be
amazing. And then I only have one more question for you to finish out the show, and that is, what is the biggest fish you've ever caught?
Oh man. So I caught a 47 pound king salmon. I'm trying to think if I caught a bigger fish of a different species, but like for a salmon, that's
a large
quite
salmon.
large, and it's thick around the back. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are bigger fish like halibut and stuff, but I don't know. I don't do a lot of halibut fishing, so
that's
probably
a big
that big
salmon.
king salmon.
I'm fine with that. All right. Well, I can't thank you enough for being here all the way from Alaska. It's been so exciting to talk to you, and I hope that you have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much. You as well.
My pleasure.